I'm Ariana, 32 years old, and the chief financial officer at a successful tech startup in Boston. Right now, I'm standing in front of my parents' colonial style house, trying to gather the courage to walk inside. Our annual family gathering should be a happy occasion, but this year is different. I've just made the hardest decision of my life, cutting ties with our family bank, a financial system my parents created years ago. They're furious, but they have no idea what my sister did to push me to this breaking point. While I gather courage to walk through that door and face my family's fury, let me know where you're watching from. And hit subscribe if family financial drama speaks to you. Trust me, you'll want to hear how my sister crossed a line that changed everything. Growing up in the Sullivan household meant learning about money early. My father, Thomas Sullivan, built his real estate development business from scratch, turning a small inheritance into a multi-million-dollar company. My mother, Diana, started as an administrative assistant at an investment firm and worked her way up to managing her own fund. They were the perfect power couple in our affluent Connecticut suburb. From my earliest memories, dinner conversations revolved around investment strategies and market trends. While other families discussed vacation plans or school activities, we analyzed stock performances and economic forecasts. This wasn't unusual to me until I visited friends' homes and realized not everyone grew up discussing compound interest over breakfast. As the firstborn, I felt the weight of my parents' expectations from day one. They didn't just want me to be successful, they expected excellence in everything I did. School grades, extracurricular activities, even the way I managed my allowance was scrutinized. Ariana, remember you're a Sullivan, my father would say whenever I showed the slightest hint of settling for less than perfection. My sister Sophia came along 5 years after me. From the moment she arrived, she seemed to operate under a different set of rules. Where I was expected to be responsible and disciplined, Sophia was allowed to be carefree and spontaneous. Her bright smile and infectious laugh seemed to melt my parents' stern demeanor in ways I never could. The family bank was my father's brainchild, established when I turned 18. He gathered us in his wood-paneled home office and explained the concept with the same seriousness he used in board meetings. Money flows through families across generations, he explained, leaning forward in his leather chair. But most families mismanage it. They either give too freely, creating entitled children who never learn value, or they hoard it, forcing each generation to start from zero. We're going to do something different. The concept was simple but powerful. My parents would create a family fund to help each member through major life milestones: college education, first homes, business ventures. The key difference from typical family wealth was the expectation of contribution. Once we became successful, we were expected to pay back into the fund with interest to help future generations. This isn't a handout, my mother emphasized, her financial analyst mindset evident. Think of it as a family investment in each other. We provide capital when you need it most, and you return the investment when you're established. For me, the family bank funded my education at Wharton Business School. Every semester, I received detailed statements showing how much I'd borrowed and the expected repayment schedule once I began my career. The money came with quarterly meetings where I reported on my academic performance and career planning, almost like shareholder meetings. Sophia, however, seemed to have a different experience with the family bank. When she attended UCLA for fashion marketing, her funding came with fewer questions and requirements. While my quarterly reports were met with probing questions and suggestions for improvement, Sophia's updates were received with encouraging smiles and reassurances. Your sister has a more creative mind, my mother explained when I once questioned the disparity. Different types of talents require different types of nurturing. Despite this imbalance, I believed in the core principles of our family bank. I dutifully began repaying my education fund immediately after landing my first job at a consulting firm. By my late 20s, I was contributing additional funds beyond my repayment, proud to be building our family's legacy. Every Thanksgiving, my father would raise a toast to the family bank's success, detailing its growth and impact on our lives. Last year's speech still echoes in my memory. The Sullivan Family Bank now has assets of over $2 million, he announced, proudly swirling the expensive bourbon in his glass. This fund represents our family values, supporting each other, building generational wealth, and teaching financial responsibility. I'm especially proud of Ariana, who has not only repaid her education funding, but has become our most consistent contributor. I beamed at the recognition while Sophia smiled and raised her glass, despite having barely begun repaying her own withdrawals. That night, my father pulled me aside after dinner. "You understand what we're building here," he said, his hand firm on my shoulder. "Someday, when your mother and I are gone, I'll need you to keep this going. Sophia is wonderful, but she doesn't have your financial mind." I nodded, accepting the responsibility as I always had. Little did I know that within a year, I would make the unthinkable decision to leave the family bank, entirely sending shockwaves through the foundation of our family relationship. My journey to financial independence began long before the current family crisis. After graduating from Wharton with honors, I started as a junior financial analyst at McKinsey. Those early years were brutal 16-hour days working weekends and sacrificing nearly everything in my personal life. My small apartment in Boston was little more than a place to shower and occasionally sleep. "You never have time for anything but work," complained my then-boyfriend Marcus after I canceled yet another date. We broke up 3 weeks later, the first of several relationships that couldn't withstand my dedication to building my career. But the sacrifice paid off. By 27, I was headhunted by a promising fintech startup called Nexus Finance as their director of financial operations. 2 years later, I was promoted to CFO, becoming one of the youngest executives in the Boston tech scene. The startup environment suited me perfectly. Unlike the rigid corporate structure of consulting, I could directly see the impact of my financial strategies. When we secured our Series B funding of $50 million, the CEO credited my financial modeling and presentation as critical factors in convincing investors. "Ariana doesn't just understand numbers," he told the celebrating team. "She tells stories with them that make people believe in our vision." With my rising income came the achievement of personal financial goals. I purchased my first condo at 28, a beautiful 2-bedroom overlooking the Charles River. My parents attended the housewarming, my father inspecting every corner of the property with an appraising eye. "Good investment," he concluded, "though you could have gotten more square footage in the suburbs." "I prefer being in the city," I replied, trying to mask my disappointment at his qualified approval. That night, I transferred $50,000 to the family bank, the final payment that fully covered my education funding plus interest. I expected to feel liberation, but instead felt a strange emptiness. The financial umbilical cord was cut, yet I continued making monthly contributions out of a sense of duty and family commitment. My personal investments grew alongside my career. I built a diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and small real estate investments, following the principles my parents had instilled, but adapting them to my more progressive risk tolerance. While my father preferred established blue-chip companies, I allocated 30% of my portfolio to technologies and sustainability-focused businesses. I met James at an investment conference where I was speaking about financial strategies for startups. As the founder of a sustainable energy software company, he approached me afterward with questions about growth modeling. Our professional conversation turned personal over coffee, and I found myself drawn to his ambitious yet grounded perspective. "What I love about you," he told me 6 months into our relationship, "is that you're financially brilliant, but never let money define your worth. That's rare in our circles." With James, I felt valued for who I was beyond my financial acumen or family background. He encouraged my independence in ways my family never had, questioning why I continued contributing to the family bank when I had fully repaid my obligations. "Family is complicated," I explained. "It's not just about the money, it's about belonging." While I was building my life of financial independence, I couldn't help noticing Sophia's different path. After graduating, she bounced between marketing jobs at fashion companies, never staying anywhere longer than a year. Yet despite her modest income, she somehow maintained an Instagram-worthy lifestyle designer clothes, frequent vacations to exotic locations, and a luxury apartment in Los Angeles. During one of our sister weekend visits, I noticed her new Chanel handbag and couldn't contain my curiosity. "That's a $5,000 bag," I remarked. "Did you get a huge raise you didn't tell me about?" Sophia laughed, tossing her perfectly highlighted hair. "No, silly. Mom and Dad helped me out. They understand that in the fashion industry, image is everything. It's basically a business expense. I nodded, swallowing my discomfort. The family bank was meant for education housing or business investments, not luxury items. But I told myself each family member's needs were different, and my parents were simply being flexible. The first real red flag appeared when Sophia pulled up to our parents' house for Christmas in a new Mercedes convertible. "Just got it yesterday," she announced, tossing the keys to our father, who looked impressed as he examined the vehicle. "Want to take it for a spin?" Later that evening, I overheard my mother talking to Sophia in the kitchen. "Honey, we agreed the last withdrawal was for your apartment deposit," my mother said in a hushed tone. "The car wasn't part of the plan." "I know, Mom," Sophia replied, her voice taking on a childlike quality I recognized from when we were young, and she wanted something. But the deal was too good to pass up, and you know I've been having anxiety about using public transportation with the pandemic. It's practically a health necessity. My mother sighed. "All right, but your father and I will need to adjust the repayment schedule again. And please, no more surprises for a while." That night, I checked the family bank statements as a contributor. I had access to the general ledger, though not all the individual agreements. What I saw disturbed me. Sophia had withdrawn over $300,000 in the past 3 years, more than twice what I had received for my entire education, and had repaid less than 5% of that amount. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. The family bank wasn't operating on the principles my father had so proudly proclaimed. It was becoming a one-way flow of money to Sophia, with seemingly different rules than those applied to me. The first serious confrontation about the family bank happened during a quarterly family dinner. These dinners had been established as informal board meetings for our family finances, but lately they had become increasingly tense, as I noticed more discrepancies in how the fund was managed. "I think we should review the withdrawal and repayment policies," I suggested as we finished our main course, "just to make sure we're all on the same page about expectations." My father frowned. "The policies are clear, Ariana. They always have been." "Then perhaps we should discuss how they're being applied," I pressed, trying to keep my voice even. "Because from the records I can access, it seems like there are different standards for different family members." Sophia rolled her eyes. "Here we go again. Just because you're some big-shot CFO doesn't mean you need to audit the family." My mother reached for her wine glass. "Ariana, honey, financial support isn't always one size fits all. Your sister has different needs than you did at her age." "Different needs or different rules?" I challenged, "because I'm seeing luxury purchases being funded, not investments in the future." My father's face hardened. "That's enough. Your sister is still establishing herself. The fashion industry doesn't have the same salary trajectory as finance. We're just helping her maintain the connections she needs to advance. By buying her a Mercedes." I couldn't hold back my frustration. "Dad, you made me drive a 10-year-old Honda through college because you said it built character." "And look how well that worked out," he replied with a tight smile. "You're successful partly because you had to work harder. Sophia needs different support." The conversation ended there, but the uneasiness didn't. Over the next few months, I began paying closer attention to Sophia's lifestyle and the family bank transactions. The discrepancies were impossible to ignore. The breaking point came during a family vacation to our lake house in New Hampshire. I was working remotely from the deck when I overheard Sophia on the phone in the adjacent room, unaware that the window was open. "Yeah, I'm heading to Paris next month," she said excitedly to whoever was on the line. I told my parents it's for a fashion industry networking event, but honestly, Zoe's birthday weekend is going to be epic. The best part? The family bank is funding the whole thing. They never question me the way they drill Ariana. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. This wasn't just about different treatment. Sophia was deliberately deceiving our parents. Later that evening, I tried to talk to her privately. "Sophia, we need to discuss how you're using the family bank," I said after pulling her aside on the dock. Her expression immediately turned defensive. "Are you spying on me now?" "I overheard your call about Paris," I admitted. "You're lying to Mom and Dad about why you need the money." Sophia's face hardened in a way I'd rarely seen. "Not everyone wants to be the perfect responsible robot like you, Ariana. Some of us actually want to enjoy life." "This isn't about enjoying life. It's about honesty and respecting what the family bank was created for." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. God, you're such a child sometimes. Do you really think mom and dad created this fund just for the noble purposes they claim? It's about control. It always has been. They use money to keep us tethered, to make us live by their rules. That's not true. I insisted, though a small part of me wondered if she had a point. It is true, she countered. The difference between us is that I figured out how to play the game. They expect me to be the creative, slightly irresponsible daughter, so I give them exactly that, just amplified enough to get what I want. I stared at her, stunned by her calculation. So you're manipulating them. I prefer to call it understanding the family dynamic, she replied with a shrug. Maybe if you stop trying so hard to be dad's perfect financial protege, you could enjoy the perks too. I shook my head. The family bank was meant to help us build our futures, not fund luxury vacations under false pretenses. Oh, please stop with the moral high ground act, Sophia snapped. You've benefited plenty. Your precious Wharton education wasn't exactly cheap. Which I paid back in full with interest, I reminded her. Good for you, she said sarcastically. Want a medal for being daddy's good little investor? Meanwhile, I'll be enjoying Paris. After that conversation, I began examining the family bank records more thoroughly. As one of the major contributors, I had some access, though my parents maintained primary control. What I found disturbed me further. Sophia had received funds for business investment 3 times in the past year, totaling over $100,000. There was no documentation of what businesses these were, no business plans. Nothing that would have been required had I made similar requests. More alarming were several large withdrawals marked simply as emergency funds, with no explanation. When I tried to discuss these with my mother, she brushed me off. Your sister is going through some personal challenges right now, she said vaguely. Sometimes the family bank needs to provide emotional support, not just financial. The final revelation came when I noticed a pattern of large withdrawals coinciding with Sophia's new relationship. She had been dating a man named Aaron for about 6 months, and I had only met him briefly during a family dinner, where he charmed my parents with stories about his investment ventures. Aaron's new tech platform is going to revolutionize peer-to-peer lending, Sophia had gushed. He's already secured major interest from investors. My father had been particularly impressed, talking with Aaron at length about market opportunities. I had remained quiet, something about Aaron's 2 perfect answers triggering my professional skepticism. Reviewing the records, I discovered a $250,000 withdrawal authorized by my parents for investment opportunity just 2 weeks after that dinner. The timing couldn't be coincidental. My suspicions fully aroused, I decided to do something I never thought I would: investigate my sister's boyfriend. The decision to investigate Aaron wasn't made lightly. In my 15 years in finance, I developed a sixth sense for detecting fraudulent schemes, and something about Aaron's pitch had triggered every alarm bell. His descriptions of returns were too perfect. His knowledge of financial regulations seemed memorized rather than understood, and he had deflected my specific questions with practiced charm. I hired Bradley, a former colleague who had transitioned to private investigation work. I need a complete background check on someone, I told him over coffee, sliding a paper with Aaron's full name and the few details I knew. Discreetly. Personal or professional concern? Bradley asked, his expression revealing nothing. Both, I admitted. He's my sister's boyfriend, but I think he might also be running a financial scam that could hurt my family. 3 days later, Bradley sent me an encrypted file with his findings. Reading it in my home office, I felt physically ill. Aaron Thompson had served 14 months in federal prison 3 years ago for wire fraud connected to an investment scam. Operating under a slightly different name, he had convinced dozens of investors to put money into a revolutionary fintech platform that never existed. More disturbing was that he had already established a new company, Next Gen Financial Solutions, with a suspiciously similar pitch to the one he'd used before. The company had a polished website, but no actual product. Multiple investor complaints already filed with the Better Business Bureau, and a business address that turned out to be a virtual office. I dug deeper into the family bank records and confirmed my worst fear: the $250,000 investment opportunity had gone directly to Next Gen Financial. My sister had convinced my parents to invest $250,000 in her boyfriend's almost certainly fraudulent company. With shaking hands, I called James for advice. I need to tell my parents, I said after explaining the situation. Are you sure your sister doesn't know about his background? James asked carefully. I want to believe she doesn't, I replied, but I need to talk to her first. I invited Sophia for lunch at a quiet restaurant near my apartment, choosing a secluded booth where we could speak privately. After some small talk, I took a deep breath and placed Bradley's report on the table. What's this? She asked, not reaching for it. Information about Aaron's past, I said quietly. Things you should know. Her expression shifted from confusion to anger so quickly that I knew immediately. You had him investigated? What the hell gives you the right? Sophia, he's a convicted fraudster, I said, keeping my voice low. He served prison time for running exactly the same scam he's running now, and you convinced Mom and Dad to invest $250,000 in his company. I expected shock or denial. Instead, Sophia leaned back, crossing her arms defensively. People make mistakes, Ariana. He paid for his. Aaron told me everything about his past, and he's worked hard to turn his life around. The revelation stunned me. You knew, and you still got Mom and Dad to invest. He deserves a second chance, she insisted. His business model is solid. Yes, he made mistakes before, but this time it's different. He has the experience now to make it work. That's not how this works, I said, struggling to keep my composure. His experience is in defrauding people. The business address is fake. There's no actual product. It's the same scam with a new name. Sophia's face flushed. You're just jealous that I found someone brilliant who sees my potential. Aaron values my input in ways you and our parents never have. This isn't about you or me, I insisted. It's about protecting our parents from a known criminal. No, she snapped. It's about you always needing to be the perfect daughter, the successful one, the responsible one. You can't stand that Mom and Dad are finally supporting something I'm involved with. They don't know what they're supporting. He's going to disappear with their money, Sophia. You don't know that, she hissed. And if you tell them about his past, I'll make sure they know how you've been spying on the family and investigating their financial decisions. They'll never trust you again. Are you threatening me? I asked, incredulous. I'm telling you to stay in your lane, she replied coldly. Aaron and I have plans, and I won't let you ruin this for me. If you go to Mom and Dad with this, I'll make sure they see you as the villain, not me. She stood up, grabbing her designer bag. Trust me, Ariana. I know exactly how to make them choose my side. I've had years of practice. As she walked away, leaving the report untouched on the table, I sat in shocked silence. My sister wasn't just making poor financial decisions. She was knowingly participating in defrauding our parents, the very people who had supported her unconditionally her entire life. That night, I couldn't sleep. The family bank had been established on principles of trust and mutual support. Now it was being used to fund a criminal enterprise with my sister's full knowledge. I had to act, even if it meant risking my relationship with my entire family. After a sleepless night, I decided to approach my parents individually, hoping that one-on-one conversations might be more productive than a confrontation. I called my mother first, asking to meet her for lunch. Over salads at her favorite bistro, I carefully broached the subject. Mom, I'm concerned about the investment in Aaron's company. Have you and Dad seen a business plan or financial projections? My mother looked surprised by the question. Sophia has shared all the relevant information with us. Aaron is a very accomplished young man with excellent connections in the financial world. Did you run any background checks on him or his company? I pressed gently. Her expression cooled. Ariana, we trust your sister's judgment. Not everything needs to be scrutinized with the same financial rigor you apply at work. But this is a significant investment from the family bank, I persisted. Wouldn't you want the same due diligence you'd expect from any major financial decision? What exactly are you implying? My mother's voice took on an edge I recognized from childhood disagreements. I'm just suggesting we verify the details before committing more resources, I said, backing off slightly. My mother set down her fork. Your father and I have managed the family's finances successfully for decades. We don't need you questioning our decisions or your sister's relationship. The conversation with my father the next day went even worse. He became defensive immediately. This obsession with your sister's finances isn't healthy, Ariana, he said, peering at me over his reading glasses in his home office. You've always been competitive with Sophia, but this is going too far. Dad, this isn't about competition, I insisted. It's about protecting our family. From what a smart investment opportunity. He shook his head. Aaron's business model is innovative. Sometimes you need to take risks for significant returns. Have you seen proof that the company is operational? I asked. Actual offices, employees, anything beyond a website. My father's face reddened. I've been in business longer than you've been alive. Don't presume to lecture me about due diligence. I realized I had no choice but to be direct. Dad Aaron Thompson served time in federal prison for investment fraud. His current company shows all the same red flags as his previous scam. I believe he's defrauding our family, and Sophia knows about his background. The stunned silence that followed was quickly replaced by cold anger. You investigated your sister's boyfriend without anyone's permission. How dare you? I was concerned. No. He cut me off. This is beyond concern. This is invasion of privacy, and frankly, it shows a disturbing lack of trust in your family's judgment. Dad, please just look at the evidence. I don't need to see your evidence, he interrupted again. What I see is a daughter who can't stand that her sister might be involved in a successful venture. Sophia warned me you might try something like this out of jealousy. My heart sank. She warned you. She said you've been increasingly hostile about her relationship with Aaron and the support we're giving them. She was right. I realized then that Sophia had preemptively poisoned the well exactly as she had threatened to do. My parents were already primed to dismiss my concerns as jealousy. The situation came to a head at the next family dinner. Sophia arrived with Aaron, who greeted me with practiced warmth that didn't reach his eyes. Throughout the meal, he charmed my parents with elaborate stories about his business connections and the prominent investors supposedly lining up for his next funding round. In fact, he announced, reaching for Sophia's hand, we've just secured preliminary approval for a major partnership that will increase our valuation significantly. Early investors like yourselves will see tremendous returns. My father beamed with pride. That's wonderful news. Perhaps we should consider increasing our position while the opportunity is available. I couldn't remain silent any longer. Before we do that, I said firmly, placing a folder on the table, I think we should review some important information. Ariana, my mother warned, but I continued. Aaron Thompson served 14 months in federal prison for investment fraud 3 years ago. I stated, looking directly at Aaron, whose smile had frozen in place. His current company has no actual product, no real office, and multiple complaints filed against it already. The silence around the table was deafening until Sophia broke it. See, this is exactly what I told you she would do, she said tearfully to my parents. She can't stand to see me happy and successful. These are verifiable facts. I insisted, opening the folder to reveal Bradley's report and printouts of court documents. His previous company was a complete fraud, and he's running the same playbook again. My mother looked horrified, but my father's face had darkened with anger directed at me, not Aaron. I've heard enough, he said sharply. Ariana, this behavior is completely unacceptable. Dad, please just read. No, he cut me off. You've crossed a line, investigating family members making accusations at the dinner table. This isn't how we raised you to behave. Aaron, ever the smooth operator, placed his hand on my father's arm. Mr. Sullivan, if I may, I understand Ariana's concerns. Yes, I made mistakes in my past, but I've paid my debt to society and learned valuable lessons from that experience. I've been completely transparent with Sophia about my history. Sophia nodded tearfully. Aaron told me everything months ago. He's worked so hard to rebuild his life. This new business is legitimate. He's just having trouble because people like Ariana refuse to believe people can change. I stared at them in disbelief. This isn't about second chances. It's about protecting our family from fraud. That $250,000 is likely already gone, and now he's asking for more. That's enough, my father thundered, standing up. I won't have you making these accusations in my house. Your sister and Aaron have been honest with us about his past and his current business. We've made our decision with full information you had no right to dig up behind everyone's back. In that moment, I realized I had a choice to make. I could continue trying to convince my family against their will, or I could protect myself from what I was certain would be financial disaster. If that's your position, I said quietly, then I need to remove myself from the family bank entirely. I can't in good conscience continue contributing to a fund that's being used to finance what I believe is fraud. My announcement was met with shocked silence. You can't be serious, my mother finally said. I am, I replied. I'll be transferring the paperwork tomorrow to withdraw all my contributions and end my participation. My father's face had turned an alarming shade of red. If you do this, Ariana, you're turning your back on this family and everything we've built together. I'm trying to protect what we've built, I said, my voice breaking slightly. But I can't force you to see what's happening. I can only make my own choice. As I gathered my things to leave, Sophia's triumphant expression told me everything. She believed she had won. What none of them understood was that this wasn't about winning or losing. It was about standing up for what I knew was right, even when it broke my heart to do so. James was waiting at my apartment when I returned, having texted him about the confrontation. He held me as I finally broke down in tears. You did the right thing, he whispered. Sometimes protecting your family means being willing to stand alone. The next morning, with James's support, I contacted our family lawyer and began the process of formally withdrawing from the family bank, the first member ever to do so in its 15-year history. The paperwork to withdraw from the family bank was surprisingly complex. Our family lawyer, Mr. Greenfield, seemed uncomfortable as he prepared the documents. This is unprecedented, Ariana, he said, shuffling papers on his desk. The Sullivan Family Trust wasn't designed with exit provisions in mind. Your father assumed this would be a lifelong commitment for all family members. I understand, I replied, my voice steadier than I felt, but I need to proceed. When the final documents were ready, I sat in Mr. Greenfield's office pen, hovering over the signature line. This wasn't just about money. It was about severing a bond that had defined our family relationships for years. My hand trembled slightly as I signed, a lump forming in my throat. I'll file these today, Mr. Greenfield said gently. Your contributions plus the calculated interest will be transferred to your personal account within 10 business days. The response from my family was swift and painful. My father called that evening, his voice colder than I'd ever heard it. Mr. Greenfield informed me of your decision, he said without greeting. I never thought I'd see the day when my own daughter would abandon our family legacy over jealousy and stubborn pride. Dad, this isn't about— Save it, he interrupted. You've made your choice. Just don't expect the family bank to be there when you eventually realize your mistake. My mother's approach was different but equally hurtful. She arrived at my apartment unannounced the next day, her eyes red from crying. How could you do this to us? She asked as soon as I opened the door. After everything we've done for you. Mom, I'm trying to protect our family, I explained as we sat in my living room. Aaron is dangerous, financially dangerous. I can't support a system that's being used to fund his schemes. So instead, you're tearing apart our family. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Your father is devastated. This bank was his vision for keeping us connected across generations. It's being exploited, I said firmly. If you and Dad won't listen to reason about Aaron, I can't continue participating. She shook her head sadly. Your sister was right. You've always resented the attention we gave her, and now you're lashing out because she's found success in her own way. Mom, this has nothing to do with resentment. Aaron is a convicted fraudster. His company is a shell. These are facts, not emotions. The fact is that you've broken your father's heart, she replied, standing to leave. I hope whatever point you're trying to make is worth it. Sophia's reaction was the most vindictive. She sent a group text to our extended family aunts, uncles, cousins, portraying me as mentally unstable and jealous of her relationship. Concerned about Ariana, her message read. She's been acting erratically, even hiring a private investigator to stalk Aaron. Now she's withdrawn from the family bank in some kind of protest. Mom and Dad are heartbroken. Please keep her in your thoughts. The fallout was immediate. Relatives who had always seen me as the responsible Sullivan now viewed me with concern or suspicion. My cousin Rachel, once my closest ally in the extended family, called to ask if I was getting the help I needed. I'm not having a breakdown, I explained frustratedly. I'm trying to prevent our family from being defrauded. It's just that this seems so out of character for you, she replied. cutting ties with the family, making accusations. It's not like you. The isolation was overwhelming. Within a week, I had gone from being the family's financial rock to its black sheep. James was my sole consistent support, reminding me daily that standing by my principles was worth the pain. Integrity isn't measured by how many people agree with you, he said one evening as we walked along the riverfront. It's about doing what's right even when you're standing alone. 2 weeks after my withdrawal, the family bank transfer was completed. $427, $893. My contributions plus interest appeared in my account. The sum represented years of commitment to my family's vision, now reduced to a transaction. I channeled my energy into work, throwing myself into a major acquisition our startup was pursuing. My CEO noticed the change. "You're putting in even more hours than usual," he commented after finding me in the office at 9 p.m. on a Friday. "Everything okay?" "Family issues," I replied vaguely. "Work is a good distraction." "Just don't burn yourself out," he advised. "Even CFOs need balance." I nodded, though balance felt impossible. My family had been my anchor, and without that connection, I felt adrift despite my professional success. 2 months passed with minimal contact from my family. The few text exchanges with my mother were formal and brief. My father hadn't spoken to me since the phone call after my withdrawal. Sophia had blocked me on all social media platforms. Then on a Tuesday morning in March, everything changed. I was in a budget meeting when my phone began buzzing repeatedly with notifications. Excusing myself, I stepped into the hallway to find dozens of missed calls and messages. The headline on my news app explained why tech entrepreneur Aaron Thompson arrested in 4-point investment fraud scheme. The article detailed how federal authorities had raided NextGen Financial's virtual office and Aaron's apartment, discovering evidence of a sophisticated Ponzi scheme targeting family investors of his girlfriend and their connections. Several prominent Boston families were mentioned as victims, including the Sullivans. My phone rang again. It was my father. After a moment's hesitation, I answered. "Ariana." His voice sounded older, weary. "You were right. About everything. Aaron was arrested this morning." The vindication I might have expected felt hollow. "I know, I just saw the news. Are you and Mom okay?" A long pause. "We lost the money. All of it. The $250,000 and more." More. My stomach dropped. "Another $200,000 last month," he admitted. "After you left, Sophia and Aaron convinced us the initial investment was about to pay off exponentially. They had documentation testimonials from other investors. It all looked legitimate." I closed my eyes, leaning against the wall. "I'm so sorry, Dad." "No." His voice cracked. "I'm the one who should apologize. You tried to warn us, and we refused to listen. We chose. We chose to believe what we wanted to hear." That evening, I drove to my parents' house for the first time since the confrontation. My mother opened the door, her eyes red and swollen from crying, and pulled me into a tight embrace without words. In the living room, my father sat slumped in his usual chair, looking smaller somehow. On the coffee table lay printouts of news articles about Aaron's arrest, and a folder of investment documents now revealed as elaborate forgeries. "Where's Sophia?" I asked as I sat down. "In her old room," my mother replied quietly. "She hasn't come out since the police called this morning." My father looked up at me, his confident facade completely gone. "How did we miss it, Ariana? All the signs were there just as you said." "Con artists are professionals at what they do," I said gently. "And when someone you love vouches for them, it's easy to overlook red flags." "But Sophia," my mother struggled to continue. "She knew about his past. The detective who called said she was aware of everything. How could she do this to us?" I had no answer that wouldn't cause more pain. After a moment, I stood up. I should talk to her. Upstairs, I knocked softly on Sophia's door. When there was no answer, I opened it slowly to find her sitting on her childhood bed, staring blankly at the wall. "Sophia?" She looked up, her face tear-streaked but expressionless. "Come to say I told you so." I sat beside her, leaving space between us. "No, I came to see if you're okay." A bitter laugh escaped her. My boyfriend's going to prison. I helped him steal from my parents, and my entire family knows what I did. I'm just fantastic. Did you know? I had to ask. From the beginning, did you know what he was doing? She was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Not at first. She finally said, her voice small. He told me about his past after we'd been dating a few months. Said it was a misunderstanding that he'd been set up by a jealous business partner. And you believed him? She nodded. I wanted to. He made me feel special, important, like I was finally the smart one, not just the pretty, irresponsible daughter. When did you realize the truth? I asked. Sophia wiped at her tears. There were inconsistencies in his stories, things that didn't add up. By the time Mom and Dad made the first investment, I had doubts, but I'd already vouched for him, already convinced them. And he promised we'd be rich, that we'd pay everyone back double. And the second investment, she looked away. I knew by then, but everything was falling apart. And he said we just needed more capital to make it work. Her voice broke. I wanted so badly to prove that I could be successful too, that I could be more than just your shadow. The revelation broke my heart. All these years, while I'd envied her easy charm and our parents' indulgence, she'd been fighting her own battle against perceived inadequacy. I never saw you as my shadow, I said softly. I always admired you. She looked at me in genuine surprise. You did. Of course. You connect with people in ways I never could. You light up rooms. I was always the awkward financial robot, remember? A ghost of a smile crossed her face before disappearing. It doesn't matter now. I've ruined everything. Mom and Dad will never forgive me. They will, I assured her, though I wasn't certain myself. But it's going to take time and a lot of work to rebuild trust. As I left Sophia's room, I knew our family was forever changed. The family bank, my father's pride and joy, had been weaponized and nearly destroyed. Yet somehow through this painful ordeal, truths we had never acknowledged were finally coming to light. The months following Aaron's arrest were a period of painful but necessary rebuilding for our family. My parents faced the humiliating task of admitting to friends and extended family that they had been victims of fraud made worse by the knowledge that their own daughter had been complicit. The legal proceedings were equally difficult. Sophia was not charged as an accomplice, but she had to provide extensive testimony about her knowledge of Aaron's activities. Sitting in the courtroom watching my sister shakily recount how she had ignored red flags and facilitated introductions to potential victims, I felt an aching sadness for how far things had spiraled. Aaron was eventually sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud and running a Ponzi scheme that had defrauded investors of nearly $5 million. The judge's stern words during sentencing echoed what I had tried to tell my family months earlier. Mr. Thompson, the judge said, you specifically targeted family networks exploiting bonds of trust between parents and children, siblings and cousins. This kind of violation damages not just bank accounts, but the fundamental relationships that form our social fabric. For the first few weeks after the arrest, I maintained a careful distance from family decisions visiting my parents, but avoiding any mention of financial matters. The wound was too raw, the memory of their dismissal too fresh. Then one rainy afternoon, my father called and asked me to meet him at his office downtown, not at home. The formality of the request surprised me. I found him sitting behind his desk, looking older than his 64 years. On the polished surface before him lay a leather portfolio I recognized as containing the family bank documents. I owe you an apology, he began without preamble. A real one, not just for being wrong about Aaron. I sat across from him waiting. I've been thinking about why we dismissed your concerns so completely, he continued. It wasn't just that we trusted Sophia. It was that accepting what you were telling us meant confronting our own failures as parents. Dad, he held up his hand. Please let me finish. We created a system that was supposed to teach financial responsibility while supporting our children. Instead, we used it to maintain control and play favorites. We treated you and Sophia differently from the beginning, expecting perfection from you, while enabling her worst tendencies. The admission was more than I had ever expected to hear from my proud father. The family bank failed, he said, tapping the portfolio, not because of Aaron's fraud, but because it was built on an uneven foundation. We told ourselves we were being responsive to each child's different needs, but the truth is, we simply expected more from you because you made it easy for us. You were responsible, so we burdened you with responsibility. Sophia struggled, so we lowered our expectations. I blinked back unexpected tears. I never minded the responsibility. I know, he said with a sad smile. That made it even easier to pile it on. But it wasn't fair, and it created the perfect environment for someone like Aaron to exploit. He opened the portfolio and slid a document across the desk. I'd like your help redesigning the family bank if you're willing. Not just the financial structure, but the governance. Equal expectations, transparent decisions, proper oversight. The request represented everything I had wanted before the falling out acknowledgement, respect for my financial expertise, a seat at the table. Yet now I hesitated. I need some time, I told him. This isn't just about systems and structures. It's about trust. He nodded. I understand. The offer remains open. My mother's reconciliation took a different form. She invited me to lunch at the small French bistro where I had first tried to warn her about Aaron. I've been seeing a therapist, she confided after we ordered, trying to understand how I could have been so blind. Mom, professional con artists fool people every day, I said. She shook her head. It's more than that. The therapist helped me see how I've been playing favorites for years. With you, I was always pushing more achievement, more responsibility. With Sophia, I was always protecting, making excuses. She reached across the table for my hand. I convinced myself it was because you were strong and she was fragile. But maybe I was just responding to what was easier for me. You never demanded much attention, so I didn't give it. She always did, so she got it. The insight struck a chord. I did resent it sometimes, I admitted, but I also learned to be self-sufficient because of it. That doesn't make it right, she replied firmly. A parent shouldn't make one child compensate for another's deficits. We failed you both in different ways. These conversations were healing but insufficient on their own. The real work of rebuilding our family took shape through consistent actions over time. My father implemented immediate changes to the family bank governance, creating a formal board that included all adult family members and an independent financial advisor. Every investment decision now required proper documentation and unanimous approval. Sophia began the harder work of earning back trust. She found a stable job in marketing for a reputable company, started therapy, and voluntarily created a repayment plan for her portion of the lost funds, a gesture that was more symbolic than practical, given the amounts involved, but meaningful nonetheless. I want to learn from you, she told me during one of our newly established sister dinners. Not just about money, but about standing firm in your convictions even when everyone disagrees. And I could learn from your ability to connect with people, I replied sincerely. We've always seen our differences as competition when they could be complementary. 3 months after Aaron's sentencing, my father formally asked me again to rejoin the family bank. This time I agreed, but with conditions. I'll return as an equal participant, not as the financial oversight, I specified. We hire outside audit firms for that role, and I want everything documented and transparent, no special arrangements for anyone. And my father agreed without hesitation, understanding this was about more than financial prudence. It was about establishing boundaries I should have set long ago. The experience changed me in profound ways. While I had always been confident in my financial acumen, I had been less certain of my personal convictions when they conflicted with family expectations. Learning to trust my instincts, even when it meant standing alone, strengthened me beyond the professional realm. James noticed the difference. You speak your mind more, he observed one evening as we walked along the Charles River. Not just about finance, but everything. It suits you. He was right. The painful experience had freed me from the need for my family's constant approval. I loved them no less, but I had learned that true family loyalty sometimes means challenging those you love rather than enabling harmful patterns. The most unexpected outcome was my relationship with Sophia. The facade of perfect sisterhood had been shattered, allowing us to build something more authentic in its place. We still disagreed often, our approaches to life remained fundamentally different, but we now appreciated these differences, rather than competing through them. 6 months after Aaron's arrest, I used part of my family bank withdrawal to establish a small nonprofit focused on financial literacy for families. The organization provided workshops on recognizing investment fraud and establishing healthy financial boundaries within families. Turning pain into purpose, my mother remarked when I told her about the initiative. You always could find opportunity in crisis. On a warm Sunday afternoon, a year after the family bank crisis began, we gathered for a barbecue in my parents' backyard. As I watched my father and Sophia collaborating on the grill, him patiently explaining his marinade recipe, her actually listening instead of improvising, I reflected on how far we had come. The family bank still existed, though, with a different name and completely restructured governance. The financial loss had been significant, but not devastating. The emotional scars were healing slowly but steadily. James squeezed my hand as we sat watching my family. "Proud of you," he whispered. "Not everyone would have fought so hard to protect their family, especially after being pushed away." "In the end, love isn't about enabling or controlling," I replied. "It's about wanting what's truly best for someone, even when they don't see it themselves." Sometimes the strongest family bonds are forged not by silent acceptance, but by having the courage to stand for what's right, even when it breaks your heart to do so. Our family learned this lesson the hard way, but perhaps that made it all the more valuable. I look at my family now, still imperfect, still learning, but more honest than we've ever been, and know that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in relationships strong enough to withstand both terrible mistakes and difficult truths. What's your experience with family financial dynamics? Have you ever had to stand your ground even when everyone disagreed with you? Leave a comment below sharing your story. And if this family journey resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who might need to hear that standing alone for what's right is sometimes the most loving thing you can do. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that integrity, like compound interest, grows more valuable over time.